So allegedly, Linus Tech Tips' employee handbook just got leaked via this Reddit post that says Linus Tech Tips isn't a great employer, has a lot of anti-labor practices, and I know because I worked there. Linus, can we talk about this? Because this is not a good look, my man. All wages, wage structures, including any kind of bonus or commission or other, and wage adjustment information is considered highly confidential. It is not to be shared, discussed, or left in a place that can be seen by coworkers or third parties outside of Linus Media Group. Now, if this is true, and this is the real employee handbook, Linus, why? I know you're in Canada, so I have to preface this, but in the United States, it is illegal to prevent workers from talking about what they get paid. That would be illegal, and you'd get taken to court so fast. It's so illegal that even if your company says, hey, sign this non-disclosure agreement, you can still talk about what you get paid. Now, I know there's going to be at least one person in the comments that goes, actually, not everyone can talk about what they get paid, and that's true. Highlighted in yellow here are the people who are excluded from the NLRB's jurisdiction. The overwhelming majority of Americans that work at private businesses are legally allowed to discuss wages and pay. Now let's look at Canada, where it's illegal in most of the places there as well, except that Linus lives in British Columbia, one of 4 provinces without either pay transparency or pay equality legislation. I imagine he's done the research, talked to the lawyers, made sure that it's okay for that to be in there, at least where he lives. Here's another fact that's making it not look good. British Columbia has one of the largest gender pay gaps in Canada, with women making on average approximately 20% less than men. When I try to think about legitimate reasons why you wouldn't want your employees to know what everyone's getting paid, I can't really think of any good legitimate reasons. This usually boils down to employee manipulation and pay disparities. Probably make some people upset, which you'd want to avoid. So I asked ChatGPT, why would an employer try to prevent employees from talking about their wages? There are several reasons. To maintain salary disparities. That's not good. That's not sounding good. To protect trade secrets. It's Linus Media Group. What trade secrets? You making semiconductors back there? Preserve company culture. Some employers believe that discussing salary can create tension and conflict among employees. I mean, like, why would that create tension and conflict? By discouraging or prohibiting discussions about wages, employers may hope to preserve a fake positive company culture to avoid legal disputes, I bet. I mean, that makes, discrimination lawsuits, of course. They should be able to talk about what they get paid, and where you live happens to be one of the only places where you can elect to have this enforced. So this is the original Reddit post that complains about Linus being not a great employer. Down here at the bottom is where they basically leak the employee handbook. I went over this post, and for the most part, some of it seems like disgruntled employee, maybe someone's first job, I don't know. Like, there are some legitimate things, but most of them was like, I don't know. But after that, I started going through the company handbook, and I was like, everything in here seems fairly standard. You had some stuff about like conflict of interest, like you can't hold certain stocks for certain companies because they get sponsored by those, and then, insider trading and stuff that made sense. And then I got to the wage part, and I was like, nah, this can't, come on. No, why? Surely you'd want people to, like, what's the reason, really? Let's start from the top. This was 13 days ago. I tried to give it a little bit of time to see if anything was going to come out after all of these accusations, and nothing really did. Throwaway account, going to anonymize and change relevant details as needed to avoid doxing. Remember this tweet, the one where Linus showed off all the Teslas that his employees could afford? Yeah, all 3 employees out of around 60 or 70 at the time. 2 of them are owned by managers, and the other someone who owned it before working there. The tweet says, I heard LMG is an abusive employer that doesn't pay very well. Kind of a weird flex moment, to be honest. Post continues and says, what about this WAN show clip where Linus is asked about unionization of his staff, and he says that him and his wife would consider it a personal failure, and calls out brazen anti-organization policies in the United States, and then says, I don't really feel like employees need additional protections, to be perfectly honest with you, and goes on to talk about at-will employment rules in the States while falsely stating that Canada is not at will. This is incorrect. I have to stop you now. Canada is not an at-will country. The United States is an at-will country for the most part. You can leave and they can fire you at any time. In Canada, that's not a thing. Like if they do a mass layoff here in the United States and they violate the WARN Act, they have to pay you 60 days, or they're supposed to give you 60 days notice. If you don't believe me, here are Canadian lawyers. The concept of at-will employment does not exist in Canada. Then I've highlighted a bunch of other things, and if you want, you can pause my screen and read about it. But the TLDR is that at-will employment is not legal in Canada. However, it is well established in the United States. So Linus has not falsely stated anything. According to the post, his company apparently has an anti-union and anti-employee attitude. And you'll need that info for this clip, but just, here you go.
I've made it very clear in the past that I feel that if our staff felt like they needed a union, I would consider that, and Yvonne too, we would both consider it personal failures.
Now that part right there where they said they would consider it a personal failure if their employees needed a union, I don't think that's anti-union necessarily. I imagine he's thinking of it as, I've probably done a terrible job if my employees feel like they need to band together to bargain with me to get what they want. On the surface, it sounds like a good thing to say, like in an ideal world, of course. Why would your employees ever want to band together?
Here in Canada, there's absolutely nothing that we'd be able to do to prevent it, legally speaking. So if they decided that they wanted to approach their engagement with their employer that way, there's absolutely nothing that we could do to challenge them on it.
What he's saying here is if his employees want to make a union, they can in Canada. But I don't know, maybe he just doesn't want to say that too loud to give them ideas. I don't know. You say if they choose to engage with their employer, is that not weird to anyone else?
It's actually sort of baffling to me that it is possible to have such blatant, like just brazen anti-organizing policies in place in our neighbors to the south. I don't get it.
So this part right here, I don't know if it's virtue signaling or not. So like he acknowledges that they can make a union if they want. Then he says his neighbors to the south, us here in the US, are brazen anti-organization. But then he's got the policy in his company handbook that's like, can't talk about wages. And that's illegal here in the United States and most of Canada, just not where you live. And even then, you don't have to put anything in there about it. Like, you could just let them talk about what they get paid. So to me, that's just not adding up all the way.
What protections do you have in place for your staff? I mean, really...
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, we have like a dental plan. I'm not really 100% sure what you're asking.
Now, I can't tell if he's being coy here because they just asked about unions in the last question, so I'm assuming they're not referring to benefits. I just find it kind of strange he says dental plan and doesn't really say anything else, and that's fine because I'll explain it, at least to the best of my knowledge, according to the research that I've done so far. Straight from the Government of Canada page, it says an employer must provide an employee with at least 2 weeks written notice of their intention to terminate the employment of the employee. In lieu of written notice, the employer must pay 2 weeks' wages at the regular rate to the employee. Now you might be wondering, does the employee have to give notice to the company? No, you don't. However, if the employment contract says that there's a requirement you do have to give notice, then you probably have to give notice. Now, as far as the United States goes, we don't really have anything like this on an individual employee level. These sorts of things only come into play when there's a mass layoff and the WARN Act is involved. Additionally, there are requirements for severance pay. In the United States, there are no requirements for companies to offer severance pay. Now, of course, there are stipulations for those things, but you can see in general there are a lot more employee protections than in the United States, where a lot of this stuff isn't required at all. As the Reddit post goes on, it's just accusation after accusation. He makes a big deal out of making LMG a great place to work, but he either lacks the necessary work experience or is out of touch due to his prior employment history, as LMG is a poor place to work. Like, that's a pretty loaded thing to say. Another significant factor is the expected workload and pay structure. Writers earn between 55,000 Canadian, I'm assuming, and 60,000 a year, and are instructed to release a video every week. Is the pay low? Is that what you're complaining about here? They have to write, build, prepare, shoot. Are they writers? What are they doing? Continues and says, it appears to be hell. There is no incentive for them to change this since, in Linus's own words, we can't not do 7 a week anymore. I'm assuming videos. Of course, he's not going to back down and just like literally lose money and make less content. If the pay's not good, and the pay's not fair, and you can't live, and you're being overworked, I don't know, are you stuck? Is there a reason that you're saying in just writing this post and trying to like do it this way? Here's what I don't get. You're talking about pay. Writers earn between 55K and 60K a year. You don't really specify like if you think this is under market or over market or competitive, but what you do say is that it's bad to work here and it's all for the chance to reside in a city where the annual living salary is 50,000. Then why? Then why go? Why take the job? Are you stuck? I don't know. Do you like need the health insurance, the dental plan? You're in Canada. Like, can't you just go anyways? Slightly over the poverty line for physically exhausting, intellectually taxing job. What do you want? To complain on Reddit so he gives you more money? I don't know. What do you think is going to happen realistically here? Linus talks about making sure that every employee can buy a house in Vancouver, but that's bullcrap, empty promises. Nevertheless, if you're fortunate enough to survive your first year, they might raise your pay to roughly 65K, plus a bonus structure. Fascinating because I've heard it's actually a tactic to sort of out those who don't want to work there. Probably. Companies do that. Pay low to see who leaves, then raise their pay after determining whether or not they can handle a demanding workplace. This part right here indicates to me that the writer of this is probably young. This is nothing new. Pay gets raised after you can prove yourself. That's just the thing that happens. That screams inexperience to me. Also, there's usually a lot of tension because the necessary effort is never well supported. What does that mean? Because the goal is to simply release something and sort it out later rather than do it effectively. Consistency is the name of the game, probably sponsorship deadlines. He has to release them because that was the agreement that they made. I don't know. Did you not think about this stuff? Which is why a bunch of launch videos lately have had errors in them, because the goal is not to be done well. It's just to release something at all and figure it out later. Sometimes that's just the way it is on YouTube. Oh, and remote work? Forget it. LMG hates work from home, and that's because Linus hates work from home. It's his company. He makes the rules. Here's the thing. It was initially introduced for COVID, but has since been reduced to a maximum of 2 days per week. So it's hybrid. It's not forget it, right? What are you doing here? They have repeatedly stated that this is a hard cap, and there are rumors that they intend to eliminate it entirely by the end of this year. For those who can work remotely, like editors, buyers, LTTstore.com employees, it makes no sense. However, Linus doesn't care because he hasn't worked a real job in more than a decade. But he has created his own job, and he's created a real job for you that you now fit in. I mean, you want to use the no true Scotsman who hasn't worked a real job? I mean, stay salty, my man. I don't know what to tell you. Here we go. Keeping track of hours is also bad. Everyone is paid hourly, including those who are compensated as salaried, because timekeeping is required, even for managers. However, there is no clock in, clock out system involved. You simply enter your job hours on a Google spreadsheet. All right, that seems pretty normal. A lot of companies do that. Due to management's strong disapproval of paying overtime, do you know why they don't want to pay overtime, right? Because they don't want to have to pay you at 1.5 times the pay you normally get. So of course they're going to prefer if you can get your job done before they have to start paying you that. If we don't have to, we don't want to. It's a company. What do you expect? They're interested in profit. They're trying to save money. Of course they want to pay you 1.5x what you already get paid. Inexperience. If you work an additional 15 minutes at the end of the day to complete a video or clean up your workspace, it's too bad, so sad, you won't get paid for that. I don't work there, so I don't know if it actually happens, but if it is happening, that is a seriously bad thing. You're accusing Linus of wage theft here, basically. So I hope you can back this up, because otherwise, if he finds out who you are and you can't prove this, that is libel. Linus Media Group gets all kinds of free time worked without pay because you aren't putting in the time when you're there for those extra 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, whatever, like a normal workplace. So what you're saying is that normal workplaces also commit wage theft. I mean, it is the biggest type of theft. Now, still, it doesn't excuse it. And if that's happening, it needs to be looked into very seriously. But you would think that if you're going to write like a normal workplace and then say that Linus is this ultra ridiculously bad place, then we jump to just straight up bad Glassdoor review here. LMG is a bad place to work and nothing is being done to improve it. 1 out of 5 stars. According to what I've heard, I love hearsay, they've recently implemented a retirement program, which is great, but I'm confident everyone would prefer it. You're just gonna go ahead and speak for everyone as the dude on Reddit. Okay. If that money were instead used to fix the things that are broken. You're not giving any examples. Just like before, where you were talking about the pay, but didn't give any examples of like what other places pay and why those would be better and how he doesn't pay competitively or something. You didn't do any of that. There was always a lot of resentment about the way things were done there, and there was a lot of whispering behind management's back, but speaking up about it to anyone in management is heavily frowned upon because of the explicit anti-union and anti-employee attitude. You're allowed to make a union if you want. So it doesn't matter if your manager has an anti-union attitude, because legally, they can't do anything about you making one. It feels like you went on r/anti-work or work reform and read like 2 posts and were like, all right, I'm an expert. This is a weird way to start the next paragraph, but it's people have been actively disciplined for talking about wages before this. Before what? Before this post? Before these links? So don't let them weasel out of this and say it means you can't share other people's wages, but you're fine to talk about your own. I'm not even sure what you're talking about here. Has he said that before? I don't know. I tried to Google it. I didn't really find anything, because that is false. And if others choose to speak up about it, they can corroborate it. I know of at least one person who still currently works there that has had this happen to them. And just so people don't think this is some random, here's proof as a full copy of the LMG employee handbook. But let's be real here. Linus does say some pretty dumb stuff though. Like, remember when he said, if you use ad block, that's piracy? We have to shout out our boy Louis Rossman here.
Ad blocking is the exact same thing as piracy. Literally the exact same thing. People will still do it, and I've been guilty of it at times, but we just need to be aware of the impacts. Fan says conflating blocking ads with piracy is silly. Why not encourage everyone to block ads but buy merch? At least your merch segues are amusing. The desk pads are awesome. Why not encourage everyone to torrent Stranger Things rather than subscribing to Netflix and then buy a Stranger Things themed Lego and t-shirt? You see now, it's literally the exact same thing.
But also, there's this video of Linus showing you how to block ads and then telling you to go buy merch instead.
Okay, look, I know what you're gonna say. Linus, why are you showing me how to block ads? That's how you make money. AdSense is a big portion of our revenue here at Linus Media Group. Guys, if you like this video and you do deploy the solution, please please buy a shirt or a hoodie.
Working at LMG might be crap. I don't know, but this all reads like a disgruntled employee with limited actual knowledge. Yeah. I think the thing here is we see Linus as the person in the videos, not the CEO that he is running the company. It's kind of a jarring disconnect because we feel like we know him because we've seen so many videos. And then there are the people who actually know him and actually work with him. It's unfortunate, right? You don't want to believe it, but if it is what it is, then that sucks. If it's blown out of proportion, that might be the case too. There's a little bit of truth, a little bit of like, okay, that's just you complaining and being upset. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed the video, if you can appreciate the research and the breakdowns, hit that like button, subscribe if you'd like to see me keep covering this, if they make an update video or a statement on it or whatever. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I just try and do the research and try to make everything make sense and ask questions and try to see both sides of things. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think. How bad is it? How many things did I get wrong? And if you have anything else you'd like me to take a look at, the links for that are all in the description. You can email me. I have Discord, Instagram, TikTok, however you want to do it. Feel free to slide in the DMs. Having said all that, I hope everyone is doing well, and I'll see you in the next one.